The title of my concluding talk today is in the form of a question. What would it take to get you to fight? I'm not speaking here figuratively, but literally. What would it take to turn you into a William Wallace or a Robert Bruce, an Isaac Shelby or a Francis Marion, a Bedford Forrest or a John Pelham, a Michael Collins or a Tom Barry? Before you answer, ponder some things and count the cost. First, what is so valuable to you that it is indispensable to life itself? Your ordered liberty, your family and loved ones, the place that sustains you and you call home, the free and unfettered practice of your Christian faith, or something else, or a combination of all these things. These are the things that are important to me, and I suppose that they are to you too. What would my life or your life be without these things? Would it be worth living? And my answer to that is no, it wouldn't. I had rather die than suffer to have these blessings, and indeed that's what they are, blessings, taken away from me. And I would also rather die than see my kinsmen deprived of them. Because when I and my kinsmen together are denied these life-giving things, then our civilization will die. Neither man's law nor his traditions should necessarily keep free men from a solemn defense of these blessings. For what is law or tradition if it seeks not the well-being of those it purports to serve? Law becomes tyranny, and tradition the justification for it. We are not made to live in isolation. Rather, we here in the South are a people. Our ancestors came from Europe, but we long ago ceased to be Europeans. We are, in a sense, Westerners, to differentiate us from the various peoples of the Orient, but that designation is too loose and amorphous. For the last 4 centuries, we have been becoming Southerners. The South is where we make our stand. It is our home. I've heard of people saying that when things get bad, I just may have to leave to go to Chile or Argentina or somewhere. Well, I say to you, adios. My home's in Alabama. Our ancestors fought, bled, and died through the ages to give us ordered liberty and prosperity. We come from a long line of fierce and godly men and women who would not bend the knee to tyranny. Some 7 centuries ago, specifically on the 6th of April, the year of our Lord 1320, after the execution of William Wallace and the subsequent triumphs of Robert Bruce, our Scottish ancestors gave us a document known as the Declaration of Arbroath, which reads in part as follows. But from these countless evils we have been set free, by the help of him who though he afflicts, yet heals and restores, by our most tireless Prince, King, and Lord, the Lord Robert. He, that his people and his heritage might be delivered out of the hands of our enemies, met toil and fatigue, hunger and peril, like another Maccabeus or Joshua, and bore them cheerfully. Him too, divine providence, his right of succession, according to our laws or customs, which we shall maintain to the death, and the due consent and assent of all of us, have made him our prince and king. To him, as to the man by whom salvation has been wrought unto our people, we are bound both by law and by his merits, that our freedom may be still maintained, and by him, come what may, we mean to stand. Yet, if he should give up what he has begun, and agree to make us or our kingdom subject to the King of England or the English, we should exert ourselves at once to drive him out as our enemy and a subverter of his own rights and ours, and make some other man who was well able to defend us our king. For as long as but 100 of us remain alive, never will we on any conditions be brought under English rule. It is not for glory, nor riches, nor honors that we are fighting, but for freedom. For that alone, which no honest man gives up, but with life itself. End quote. Do you, Southern patriot, understand what you have just heard? The Scottish people, through their representatives, who drafted and signed this declaration, extend their most humble thanks to the man, King Robert the Bruce, who drove the hated English, the Sassenach, from their lands. Moreover, they acknowledge Bruce's right and that of his successors to the throne of Scotland, and their fealty to him as king. After all, they said, quote, we are bound both by law and by his merits, end quote. However, there is a caveat, quote, yet if he should give up what he has begun and agree to make us or our kingdom subject to the King of English or the English, the King of England or the English, and it goes on. In other words, should the people of Scotland be betrayed by their leader, they would in no ways be bound to continue to obey or serve him against their own interests. Nor should the Southern people consent to serve those who betray their interest in our own day. Sadly, our true interests were compromised and sold for, as the Bible tells us, a mess of pottage by our so-called leaders a long time ago. For instance, if the South had had real leaders of the people, there would have been no second Reconstruction, what we call politely the Civil Rights Movement. Nor would there have been a Republican Party takeover of Dixie beginning in the 1960s. Nor would we have become a tame and servile economic colony to the interest of international business and banking. Had the natural leaders of the South led us instead of betraying us, then we would be a free and prosperous people in 2011, and I wouldn't have to be standing up here doing what I'm doing, because I'm not from the leadership class of the South. I come from very low and humble beginnings, at best lower middle class, yet we look around and we don't see any of the wealthy, prosperous, influential Southerners in the Southern nationalist movement today, do we? No, it's left up to common Southerners like us to do the job that our so-called leaders should have been doing for the last 50 years at least. But we will do it. They have sold us out for their own pursuit of wealth and power. Therefore, we must do as the Scottish people threatened to do in the 14th century. We must look to ourselves and ourselves alone and muster whatever resources we can at this late and perilous hour. The prime resource, as it were, is found right here in our heads. It is the realization that we are no longer free in the sense that our forefathers were free. Though I do tend toward hyperbole from time to time, it's just my nature, I am not exaggerating one bit now. Things may seem normal to some degree, but they are not. Since the fall of 2008, we have been robbed. And not just we who are alive today, but our children, grandchildren, and generations of Southerners, yet unborn. The American kleptocracy has stolen your patrimony, and they have done it in broad open daylight, laughing at you the whole time. When anyone questioned their tactics, they trotted out the old financial Armageddon, tanks in the streets argument, saying that there would be martial law imposed across the land if they were not given their bailouts, their TARP programs. Folks, this is just fancy language for old-fashioned robbery. That's all it is. But our people acted as if they barely noticed this and went back into their self-induced coma. It is truly pitiful to see an enslaved population that believes it is free.